With renewed determination, I set off into the night, the weight of my mission propelling me forward. This was bigger than any one person, any one organization. It was about the truth, and I was going to make sure it saw the light of day. The aftermath of the infiltration was immediate and intense. I knew that the cabal would be on high alert after the disruption at their staged event. My once covert investigation had now escalated into a perilous game of cat and mouse, with me as the prey. I navigated the city's underbelly, using every evasive maneuver I had learned over years of training. My instincts were my guide, leading me through back alleys and deserted streets. I couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were watching my every move, tracking me through the city's shadowy corners. Unexpected help came from an unlikely source. Raven, the mysterious informant from the warehouse, contacted me. She had her own network of informants and offered me temporary shelter and assistance. Her motives were still unclear, but her help was invaluable. With Raven's aid, I evaded several close encounters with what I assumed were the cabal's agents. The chase led me through the city and beyond, always staying one step ahead but never quite able to shake my pursuers. The constant movement was exhausting, both mentally and physically. Sleep was snatched in short bursts, never in the same place twice. Amidst this chaos, I managed to contact my trusted allies to update them and plan the next move. We coordinated our efforts, sharing information and resources while still maintaining operational security. It was a delicate balance but necessary to stay ahead of the cabal. One night, while holed up in an abandoned farmhouse, I received a distressing update. One of my closest allies had been captured by the cabal. It was a stark reminder of the risks we were all taking, and the lengths to which our enemies would go to maintain their grip on power. With each passing day, the evidence I carried became more of a burden. It was the key to exposing the cabal, but it also painted a target on my back. The need to get this information to a reliable outlet became more pressing, but opportunities to do so were dwindling. The turning point came unexpectedly. I received a cryptic message from my double agent contact, hinting at a vulnerability within the cabal's ranks. It was a slim chance, but it offered a glimmer of hope, a way to turn the tables and take the fight to the enemy. With renewed resolve, I planned my next move. It was a risky operation that required precision and a bit of luck, but if successful, it could expose the cabal and bring an end to the chase. I was tired of running, tired of hiding. It was time to confront the enemy head-on. As dawn broke, I set out to execute the plan. The stakes were higher than ever, but so was my determination. This chase would soon come to an end, one way or another. The truth would be revealed, and I would do everything in my power to ensure it was exposed to the world. The plan to expose the cabal required every ounce of skill and cunning I possessed. It hinged on a daring move, infiltrating a key facility where the cabal supposedly held their most sensitive communications and data. This was the nerve center of their operation, and breaching it would either make or break our efforts. I gathered a small team for the mission, consisting of the most trusted individuals from my network, including a couple of old military buddies and a few new allies I had met through Raven. We understood the gravity of the situation. Success could mean the end of the cabal's influence, but failure would likely cost us our lives. The night of the operation was tense. We moved under the cover of darkness, each of us aware that this could be our last mission. The facility was more fortified than we had anticipated, but we had prepared for this. Utilizing a combination of hacking, stealth, and precise coordination, we managed to breach the perimeter. Inside, we split up to cover more ground. I headed straight for the central data hub, where I hoped to find the evidence we needed to expose the cabal. The corridors were eerily quiet, but the hum of high-tech equipment was a constant reminder of the enemy's presence. In the data hub, I worked quickly to download as much information as I could. Documents, emails, video files, anything that could be used to expose the cabal's activities. The data was extensive, detailing years of manipulation, corruption, and plans for future operations. As I transferred the last of the files, an alarm blared through the facility. We had been discovered. The mission shifted from infiltration to escape. Gunfire echoed through the halls as we fought our way out. It was chaotic, a desperate bid for survival. Amidst the chaos, I witnessed acts of bravery from my team that I would never forget. They fought fiercely, not just for their own lives, but for the greater good. We were a unit, bound by a common goal, and that unity gave us strength. Battered and bruised, we managed to escape with the evidence. It was a close call, closer than any of us were comfortable with, but we had achieved what we set out to do. Now it was time to bring the truth to light. We regrouped at a secure location, where I made contact with a trusted journalist, known for their integrity and willingness to fight for the truth. I handed over the evidence, knowing that it would soon be broadcast to the world. The following days were a whirlwind. The story broke, sending shockwaves through the nation. The cabal's manipulation and corruption were laid bare for all to see. There were arrests, resignations, and public outcry. The truth had a domino effect, toppling the power structure the cabal had so carefully built. As I watched the events unfold, I felt a sense of relief mixed with disbelief. We had done it, exposed the truth and dismantled a conspiracy that had threatened the very core of our democracy. But the fight was far from over. The cabal had deep roots, and we had only scratched the surface. However, for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. We had shown that the truth could prevail, even against the greatest odds. The battle for transparency and integrity was just beginning, and I was ready for whatever came next. As the dust settled from the revelation of the cabal's extensive manipulation and corruption, I found myself in a world markedly different from the one I had known. The once shadowy figures of the conspiracy were now exposed under the glaring light of public scrutiny, their schemes and plots laid bare for all to see. It was a victory, but one that came with its own set of complexities and challenges. The aftermath of the exposé was a time of reckoning. Governments and organizations worldwide grappled with the implications of the cabal's influence. There were trials and public hearings, a collective effort to cleanse the system of the rot that had set in, but the process was neither quick nor easy. The roots of corruption ran deep, and the path to recovery was fraught with obstacles. In this new era of openness, I found myself a changed man. The once clear lines of allegiance and duty had blurred, replaced by a broader understanding of the world and its intricacies. My role as a Green Beret had always been defined by a sense of purpose and clarity, but now I found myself questioning the very foundations of those beliefs. Despite the challenges, there was a sense of progress. The dismantling of the cabal had sparked a global movement towards transparency and accountability. People were more politically engaged, demanding honesty and integrity from their leaders. It was a slow and often frustrating process, but it was movement nonetheless. In the midst of this societal shift, I took some time to reflect on my own journey. The battles I had fought, both physical and ideological, had left their mark. I had seen the worst of what people could do in the pursuit of power, but I had also witnessed incredible acts of bravery and sacrifice for the greater good. Looking forward, I realized that my fight was far from over. The world was changing, and with it, the nature of conflict and warfare. My experiences had given me a unique perspective, one that could be valuable in navigating the uncertainties of this new landscape. I considered my future, contemplating a return to the military with a renewed focus on training and intelligence. The lessons I had learned from exposing the cabal could be instrumental in preventing similar threats in the future. Alternatively, I thought about using my experience to advise policymakers, helping to shape a world where such conspiracies could never take hold again. In the end, I decided to take some time to reconnect with my roots. I visited family and old friends, reconnecting with parts of my life that had been neglected in my singular focus on the mission. It was a time for healing and reflection, a chance to regain a sense of normalcy after years of living in the shadows. As I looked to the horizon, The world seemed both daunting and full of opportunity. The fight against corruption and manipulation was ongoing, but there was hope. I had played my part in bringing a dark chapter to a close, but there were many more chapters yet to be written. The future was uncertain, but I was ready to face it, armed with the knowledge and experience gained from my battles against the shadows. The fight for truth and justice was eternal, and I was prepared to continue that fight, wherever it might lead. The smoke still hung heavy in the air, a thick, acrid veil that seemed to encapsulate the battlefield's chaos and loss. As I stood amidst the rubble of the rebel stronghold, the weight of what had transpired pressed down on me. The burning remains of the flag, the shattered remnants of the rebellion's symbols, and General Lincoln's final desperate plea echoed in my mind. It was over, or so I thought. In the dimming light of dusk, my team and I began the grim task of clearing the debris. It was then, beneath a pile of charred documents and twisted metal, that I stumbled upon something unexpected, a sealed envelope, unscathed by the fire and chaos around it. My curiosity piqued. I carefully opened it, finding documents that hinted at a broader scheme, one that transcended the rebellion we had just quashed. These papers spoke of shadowy figures, cryptic meetings, and plans that seemed to reach into the highest echelons of power. It was a conspiracy that appeared to dwarf the rebellion itself, suggesting that what we had seen was merely a facade for something much more sinister. I knew what my orders were: to return to base, debrief, and await further instructions. But as I stood there holding those papers, a sense of personal responsibility took hold. How deep did this rabbit hole go? Who could I trust? These questions gnawed at me, urging me to delve deeper. That night, back at our temporary encampment, I lay awake, the documents spread out before me under the dim glow of my flashlight. The more I read, the more the unease grew. There were names I recognized, places I knew, but all framed within a narrative that seemed almost unbelievable. My decision was made in the early hours of the morning. I would investigate this conspiracy. It was a path that I knew could lead to danger, perhaps even treason in the eyes of some. But the truth was a siren call I couldn't resist. The following day, I set out under the guise of a routine patrol, but my true mission was to follow the thread of clues laid out in those documents. My first stop was a secluded spot in the woods, coordinates I had deciphered from the papers. It was there I hoped to find my first real lead. As I approached the location, the stillness of the forest seemed to press in around me. Every step felt heavy, every shadow a potential threat. And then, as I neared the clearing, a figure emerged from the trees. Shrouded in a hooded cloak, they motioned for silence before beckoning me forward. The meeting was brief. The hooded figure handed me an encrypted drive, whispering of a meeting place where more would be revealed. As quickly as they appeared, they vanished back into the forest, leaving me with more questions than answers. But one thing was clear: I was now entangled in a web of intrigue that stretched far beyond the battlefield. This was a different kind of warfare, one of shadows and secrets, and I was right at its heart. The encrypted drive lay in my hand, feeling heavier than its slight weight. It was a tangible link to the shadowy depths of the conspiracy I was now entwining myself in. Back in a secure location, I managed to break the encryption, revealing a series of communications between unknown entities. They spoke in veiled terms, referencing a larger plan and a meeting, a chance for me to dive deeper into this enigma. The meeting was set in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of a forgotten town, a relic of better times now serving as a rendezvous for those operating in the shadows. I arrived under the cover of darkness, my senses heightened, aware of the risks of walking into potential treachery. Inside, the warehouse was vast and empty, save for a single figure standing in the dim light filtering through the broken skylights. As I approached, the figure turned. A woman, her eyes sharp and calculating. She introduced herself as Raven, a code name that hinted at her role as a gatherer of secrets. Raven divulged that the rebellion was a mere front, a distraction orchestrated by a cabal seeking to seize control at the highest levels. Their aim was chaos, manipulation of power structures, and ultimately, control over the nation. Our meeting was cut short. Shadows moved in the periphery, and a sudden burst of gunfire shattered the silence. It was an ambush. Raven and I dove for cover, returning fire. We fought our way out, a dance of bullets and survival instincts. Raven disappeared amidst the chaos, leaving me to fend for myself. I barely escaped, my mind racing with the implications of her revelations. The ambush confirmed it. We had hit a nerve. Someone wanted to keep this conspiracy under wraps, and they were willing to kill to maintain the silence. This wasn't just about uncovering a hidden agenda anymore. It was about staying alive long enough to expose it. I needed to lay low, to disappear until I could understand the magnitude of what I was dealing with. The drive Raven had given me contained coordinates for another meeting, but I needed time to plan. This was a game of chess with deadly consequences, and I was still learning the rules. In a secluded safe house, I began to piece together the information I had. The documents, Raven's words, and the ambush painted a picture of a conspiracy that was more complex and dangerous than anything I had encountered before. It was like peeling back layers of an onion, each one revealing a new, more pungent layer beneath. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't do this alone. I needed allies. But trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. Reaching out to contacts I had in the military and intelligence community, I sought help without revealing too much. It was a delicate balance, gathering resources while not exposing myself to potential threats within my own ranks. As dawn broke, I knew one thing for certain. I was embarking on a path that would change everything I knew about my country, my mission, and myself. The truth was out there, shrouded in shadows and deceit, but I was determined to bring it into the light, no matter the cost. The next few days were a blur of covert operations and clandestine gatherings. I moved through the shadows, gathering bits and pieces of information that, when put together, began to form a more coherent picture of the conspiracy. It was like assembling a jigsaw puzzle with half the pieces missing, but each new piece brought more clarity. One night, in a dimly lit back room of an unassuming bar, I met with a contact who claimed to have direct knowledge of the cabal's operations. He was a nervous, twitchy man, constantly looking over his shoulder. From him, I learned about secret bank accounts, hush money, and names of some high-ranking officials who were allegedly involved. He didn't have concrete proof, but he pointed me towards a secure facility where I could find the evidence I needed. Armed with this new information, I planned a risky operation to infiltrate the facility. It was a well-guarded place, with security that suggested it held secrets far more significant than its outward appearance let on. I had to be careful, precise, and fast. There was no room for error. The night of the operation was tense. Cloaked in darkness, I bypassed security systems and made my way into the heart of the facility. What I found there was more than I had bargained for. Stacks of documents, encrypted hard drives, and dossiers on key political figures. It was the evidence I needed, but there was too much to take with me. I spent hours documenting and copying as much as I could before I heard the faint sound of footsteps. I had to leave, and quickly. I managed to escape just as the security alarm blared into life, the sound echoing in my ears as I disappeared into the night. The documents I had secured were damning. They detailed plans to manipulate political events, control media narratives, and even stage incidents to sway public opinion. It was a comprehensive and chilling strategy to control the nation from the shadows. But among the documents was something unexpected, a name I recognized. A double agent, someone who had been feeding information to both sides. This person could be the key to unraveling the entire plot. But could they be trusted? I arranged a meeting with the double agent, a risky endeavor but necessary. We met in a deserted park under the cover of night. He was a man I had known for years, someone I had considered a friend. His confession was a mix of remorse and justification. He had started as a mole within the conspiracy, but had gotten in too deep. He handed me a small flash drive. "Everything you need to expose them is on there," he said, his voice barely a whisper. But he warned me that the cabal was more extensive and more powerful than I could imagine. They had eyes and ears everywhere, and now they knew I was a threat. I left the meeting with a heavy heart. The path forward was fraught with danger, and now I had to watch my back more than ever. The conspiracy was deep-rooted and far-reaching, but with the evidence in my hand, I was one step closer to bringing it into the light. I just had to stay alive long enough to do so. The revelation of the double agent and the weight of the evidence in my possession brought a new level of complexity to my mission. I found myself caught in a web of moral ambiguity, struggling to discern right from wrong in a world where every truth seemed to have a shadow. My allegiance to my country was unwavering, but the lines between duty and conscience began to blur. The information I had uncovered pointed to a corruption that reached the highest levels of power. It was not just a fight against external enemies, but a battle within, against those who had betrayed the very ideals we stood for. In these moments of doubt, I sought counsel from old allies, individuals I had served with and trusted. We met in secret, away from prying eyes and ears. Their perspectives were varied, some urging caution and others advocating for immediate action. But all shared a sense of unease about the direction our nation was headed. One night, a close call shook me to my core. An attempted ambush. I still don't know if it was by the cabal or someone within our ranks who had grown suspicious of my activities. I narrowly escaped, the incident leaving me with a heightened sense of paranoia. Trust, a commodity already in short supply, now felt almost extinct. I started moving from one safe house to another, constantly watching over my shoulder. The evidence I had collected was secure, but the more I uncovered, the more dangerous my position became. I was a lone wolf, operating in the shadows, and every step felt like it could be my last. The burden of my mission weighed heavily on me. I had taken an oath to protect my country, but now I was fighting an unseen enemy, one that wore the same uniform and swore the same oaths. The irony was not lost on me, and it fueled my determination to expose the truth. As I delved deeper into the conspiracy, I uncovered plans for a staged event, something that would shift the balance of power and solidify the cabal's control. Time was running out, and I knew I had to act fast. The evidence I had was damning, but it needed to be seen by the right eyes, eyes that could make a difference. I planned a daring move to bring the evidence directly to a trusted contact in the intelligence community. It was a risk, but if successful, it could turn the tide and expose the cabal for what it was. The meeting was set, the plan in motion. But as I prepared to make my move, a sense of foreboding settled over me. I was about to step into the lion's den, and I knew that there was no turning back. The fate of my country hung in the balance, and I was the fulcrum. With a deep breath, I steeled myself for what was to come, ready to face whatever consequences awaited. The truth had to come out, no matter the cost. The night was especially dark as I made my way to the location of the staged event, the intel from my contact burning a hole in my pocket. Disguised in civilian clothes, I blended into the shadows, moving closer to the heart of the enemy's operation. This was it, the chance to gather undeniable proof of the cabal's manipulation. As I approached the venue, an abandoned industrial complex repurposed for this nefarious event, I could feel the tension in the air. Security was tight, with armed guards patrolling the perimeter. Slipping past them required every bit of my training and experience. Once inside, I found myself in a hive of activity, with individuals bustling about, setting the stage for something big. Hiding in the shadows, I overheard conversations that confirmed my worst fears. The event was a setup, a play orchestrated to sway public opinion and justify the cabal's next move in their quest for power. They spoke of a trigger event that would happen soon, something that would send ripples through the nation. The weight of what I was about to witness settled heavily on me. I needed to record everything, gather as much evidence as possible before making my escape. But as I moved to a better vantage point, the unexpected happened. I was spotted by a guard. What followed was a heart-pounding chase through the labyrinthine corridors of the complex. I narrowly avoided capture, using every trick I had to lose my pursuers. Finally, I found a momentary refuge in a darkened room, my heart racing as I tried to calm my breathing. In the dim light, I could see the stage set for the event, a setup that would undoubtedly lead to loss of life and chaos. I recorded everything, documenting the scene with my concealed camera. This was the evidence I needed, but I had to get it out. With the sounds of my pursuers growing distant, I made my daring escape. Climbing through a small window, I found myself in an alleyway, the cool night air a stark contrast to the stifling atmosphere inside. I knew I wasn't safe yet, but the first part of my mission was complete. I moved quickly, avoiding main roads and staying in the shadows. The evidence I had was explosive, capable of blowing the lid off the entire conspiracy. But I was now a marked man, and every step towards safety was fraught with danger. As I finally reached a safe distance from the complex, I allowed myself a moment to catch my breath. The night sky seemed to open up above me, a vast expanse of darkness dotted with stars. But there was no time to waste. I had to get this evidence to my contact, to expose the cabal and their twisted plans.